I want to set the context of the burning questions I have to ask. The context is ever-growing cities, more concentrated, megacities, the high-rise tower as a dominant building form, and a falling apart of the quality of life in many of our cities. So, a number of questions. Are there limits to density? Can we overcome the uniformity of globalization? Can we save the public realm? Can nature and urbanization cohabit? And finally, what are the cities going to be like after the car? I'm going to take you on a journey that has to do with my own experience. As I came to architecture as a student, these were the prevailing models, the attempt theoretically to deal with a high-rise tower. Le Corbusier's Ville Radieuse, Hilbert-Seimer's The City of the Future. And as a young student, I got a traveling fellowship to study housing in North America. And this is Cabrini Green in Chicago, which was the answer of public housing to urban housing for families. I thought it was atrocious. And on the other side of the journey were Levitt towns and suburbs spreading on the land, everyone preferring to live in their own house. And so out of this came my thesis as a student, which through a fairy tale, which I won't go into, got built as part of the World's Fair of 1967, Habitat, a project in which I said, let's rethink the apartment building. Let's make apartments like houses, open in all directions, each with its own garden. Let's prefabricate them for efficiency. Let's give them the qualities that you have in the suburbs, but in a dense city. The building is now 50 years old. It lives happily ever after. But it did not proliferate. It did not become the common solution. Many years later, as I started working in Asia, I realized that the densities we imagined in the 60s and the 70s were nothing compared to the reality of cities today. This is Hong Kong, this is Singapore, the extraordinary density and congestion. This is the state of our infrastructure in many cities, Puebla included. And so, about 15 years ago, we began a research project. Can we meet those densities? Can we look at them in terms of the newly emerging mixed uses? After a year of work, we had all these models, lots of alternatives. Some were about medium density, more efficient construction. Others were membrane-like housing in which you would get your pad and design your own house. But one density study, which was very relevant, was to take New York Midtown and study its density and mixed use, residential, commercial, the different colors, housing, and try and see if we can reproduce that same density in a livable environment. And you see here 75-story fabric, streets on the 25th level, housing above, offices and shops below, a permeable structure that allows the air and light to go through, so even if you build it next to a park, it doesn't block the view of everyone else. And like in the Habitat complex, gardens, both communal and private, for everyone who lives there. And as things are in life, from research to reality, we have been able now, 50 years later, to realize for middle-income families some of these housing ambitions. This is in a city in China, Qinghuangdao, a coastal city, middle-income housing, lots of the quality features and amenities of the original Habitat, and in Singapore, again, middle-income, 600 families, lots of children, bridges that connect the structures with playgrounds and swimming pools and public amenities, trying to demonstrate that you can improve the quality of life within dense cities. Yet, my answer to the question, there are limits to density. The New York density of a floor coverage ratio of 12 is as far as you can go, in my opinion. You must supplement it with a lot of park space. Moreover, the denser you go, the more expensive it is to meet the quality of life ambitions. If you go to half that density, you can do so more efficiently. Change of subject. I'm appalled personally, and I think many of us are, how this much places become the same. I travel the world, the same airports, the same McDonald's, the same architecture, the same glass towers, and I've become obsessed with how we might actually try and create an architecture that belongs to a place, that is not just a preconceived kind of cookie cutter that you bring and parachute from one culture to the other. And for me, the transformation began in Jerusalem, where in the 70s, I came in and helped to rebuild the city, beginning with the old city within the walls, and then a complex outside the city walls, where everybody said, you can't build modern buildings in harmony with the heritage of a historic city. And I felt the assumption was wrong. And you see here the complex rebuilt 30, 40 years later, shops and apartments and shopping streets and hotels and parks, but they are conceived as a continuity with the historic city. And so they are open to the air shopping streets, mixed use with apartments. Everything is built with stone, as actually is legislated in Jerusalem in order to harmonize. You see here old buildings and new buildings together, and I became interested not just in the formal, but also in the deeper questions of how you relate to the past to the present. Housing, as you see, from the old city walls, university, all blending in, integrating landscape and building, etc. And from there, as I went from country to country, I became interested in that same question. National Gallery of Canada, next to Parliament, a neo-Gothic city, the coldest capital in the world, Nordic architecture, and the architecture that emerged for the National Gallery was an architecture of ceremonial architecture, a glass, crystal-like architecture, echoing the Gothic, but also very contemporary, a building that's open and transparent and inviting as the modern museum should be. You rise into it through the Grand Arcade. It is the capital of the country, to the Great Hall. I was very happy and proud 3 years ago when President Obama came to have the state dinner in the Great Hall with Justin Trudeau. I'm not sure today I would roll the red carpet for the current president, but there it is. The Great Hall, which transforms with the sunlight and the seasons, switch to a completely different context. Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, the Holocaust Museum, a major new museum to replace the old historic museum. And I struggled. This beautiful hill should not have a big building dominating it to tell the story of the Holocaust. And so my first sketch was thinking how to avoid that, how to cut through the mountain, come in through one side of the mountain and emerge from the other. And you see here the finished building. It penetrates the mountain from the south, emerges to the north. All the galleries are underground. You come through a pavilion, which is kind of a transition from the profane to the sacred. You cross a bridge. You enter that prismatic structure. You move through the narrative. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you cannot get through until you move through the narrative chapter by chapter. The exhibits are integrated with the architecture. The concrete structure is bland. There's no detail to it. It's the story that you experience. And the spectators and the exhibits merge into one. The Hall of Names is where all the files of the names that are known are collected in a great cylinder, some of the photographs above, the names that will never be known, symbolically dug deep into the earth, and finally you come to light, to life. We prevailed, life continues, architecture lifts you up with hopeful optimism. A few years later, while I was visiting Jerusalem, I was called by the ministry, foreign ministry, to come and meet the Prime Minister of Punjab in India, the one Sikh state in India, who said to me, I was very moved by your museum. We are going to build our own museum. We have suffered a great deal as Sikh people. We have many parallels with the Jewish traditions. Will you come and design the museum for us? As many of you architects here know, we don't get jobs like that very often. 2 weeks later, I was in Punjab. They took me to see the Golden Temple, their holiest site. Then they took me to the site in the small town where the museum will be built. And there was a controversy. What does this Israeli, Canadian, American Jew know about Sikhism? Why is he designing our museum? And I knew that I was on a hot seat. I had to make a building which the Sikh community can really identify with. I studied Sikhism. I visited the fortress cities of Rajasthan, which are very much in the tradition of both Punjab and Indian architecture. These were my first sketches, rising out of the sand cliffs, echoing the fortress architecture of the past, but very much a contemporary building, straddling the two hills with water gardens created in the valley. Then I came and there was a groundbreaking. 500,000 people showed up. 10 years later, 2 governments later, 2 prime ministers later, there it is, completed. It was a very moving moment to see the thousands of Sikhs coming to celebrate their new museum of their own heritage. And complete contrast, United States, Arkansas, Bentonville, Arkansas. I was asked to design a museum of American art. I was asked that it should be a museum which is as much a place of community as it is a museum. I came to the site, a family estate of the Walton family who's sponsoring it, and I was thinking, where will I build it? On the hilltop in the valley. It's not far from downtown Bentonville, but don't be misled by the word downtown. It's a little town. I decided to build right in the valley, save all the big trees on the hills, and build in the valley like the old mill towns. And I had the thought that if I create a couple of dams, they will form ponds, and then I can build the museum around it in a way that would integrate nature with art. These were my early sketches, creating the ponds and the pavilions around them. You go from a gallery, you experience nature, in and out. There's a finished building, nestled in the valley. You move through the galleries, you look back to nature, the social spaces, the galleries again. Everything in that building is constructed with wood harvested in Arkansas, local pine, and that really gives it the sense of the place itself. Buildings around the pond, Change of subject. Can we save the public realm? Why am I saying that? I believe that everything about our cities today, thank you. That's a welcome drink. Everything about our public realm is being eroded. Compare downtown Puebla to the new Puebla. Think of the streets of old and the malls of today. There is a privatization of the public realm. And the denser the cities get, the tougher it gets. I'll show you two projects in which I've tried to deal with that at the very highest densities of development. The first is Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. When we got this commission, it was a competition, my wife said to me, "Why do you want to do a casino?" And I said to her, casino's 5% of this project, but the opportunity is to show that you can create a rich public realm. Thank you. What do I mean by that? Public realm of what used to be streets and piazzas and gallerias in something new and contemporary that fits our lives today. For one thing, we want climate control, but can we still have nature? My inspiration was the Byzantine plan of Old Jerusalem, which showed, like all Roman cities, the great Cardo Maximus going from gate to gate, a spine of life of the city. And so I took the concept of the promenade along the water, which was mandated by the municipality, and the shopping street or mall, you could say, of old, integrating them into a new indoor-outdoor, air-conditioned, non-air-conditioned environment. So here you have the public promenades along the water, outdoors. At night they come to life in the richest way. Then they move through as internal streets with their climate control. And then a new idea, parks and public spaces on the 6th floor, on the 59th floor. This is the Sky Park, which is 2.5 hectares of park and swimming pools and observatories for the public and for those who are using the project. Another concept, Raffles City, in the largest city in China, Chongqing, in the site where the city was born, we were asked to put together 1 million square meters of mixed-use space. And what I did is extend the city streets right through the project, so they become the shopping streets, but they're part of the city streets. They connect. Here you see one of those streets as it becomes from vehicular to pedestrian. The whole podium roof is a public park. Housing. There is a conservatory, because climate is very tough in there rather than an open park. And again, the combination of these elements trying to show public realm can be truly public even when it is privately constructed. This is nearing completion for next year's opening. And finally, my last question. Can nature and urbanization be brought together into one experience? And the opportunity to look at that question was at Changi Airport in Singapore, which asked us to design, again in a competitive process, a new center that unifies all the terminals. And our idea was, let's take the shopping and all the airport spaces. Airports are usually horrible places. By the way, my condolences on the canceling of yours. When something has gone as far as it is, you take courage and realize it. But I didn't have a vote in the. This project, which has been nicknamed Jewel, integrates the shopping and the airport spaces into one great garden. And the garden is both the plateau and the valley, as you can see in the cross-section. It is the largest glass roof over a garden ever built, and the entire roof drains into the center all the rainfall, and in Singapore, that's a lot of water. On a good rain, we will get 12,000 gallons a minute. And when it's not raining, we'll pump the water and cool the building. So you see shopping next to nature, next to a park. This is under construction, the Great Valley. The train runs right through the building. It is a kind of crystal-like structure, and I hope when it is completed next year, we will be convinced that nature, in the sense of parks and gardens and plant life, and urbanization at its most intense, can cohabit, can be experienced together. Which brings me to my last question. What is the city like going to be after the car? 10 years ago, I wrote a book called The City After the Automobile. I qualified it. I said that we won't get rid of the car, we love it too much, but we'll stop owning it. It'll be on demand, like the bicycles you pick up and leave. I couldn't even imagine, at the time, self-driving cars, which, maybe not next year, but certainly within the next 30, 40 years, will become a reality. Cities are going to change completely. In fact, I speculate, what will that city be like? And for that, I'll need another 20 minutes. Thank you very much.